Well, good morning. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. We are a growing station. We're also on 102.3 FM. We're on Truth Social, Rumble, Twitter, and Facebook. So if you can't catch a show during its normal aired time, a lot of our shows you can pick up later. I'm excited to talk to somebody today that is running for Dianne Feinstein's position. So, California State Senator. We don't actually divide up the state. There's 2 senators, but they have the whole state. So that's a lot of territory, 58 counties to cover. And this candidate's been in for quite some time. You jumped in earlier than anybody else. I think there's 5 Republicans now in, unless somebody slipped in at the filing deadline.
There'll be people that'll continue to slip in before the filing deadline. But, I really prayed about this, Eric, and I looked at what the Biden administration was doing and how they're just destroying our industries here in America, how they're putting people out of work. I mean, day one, what did Biden do? Yeah. I mean, he fired everybody that was on the Keystone XL pipeline.
Yep.
I mean, I looked at the national security issues. I'm somebody that's had top secret clearances.
So I'm going to pause you just for one reason.
All right.
We didn't get your name.
My name is Denise Gary Pandol, and I'm running for United States, not state Senate. I'm not running for California State Senate. I'm running for the state of California, but in the United States race. So Dianne Feinstein is a U.S. Senator, and now I'm here on the Constitutionalist with Eric Rollins show because I want to defeat Adam Schiff. And I hope all of you out there will help me defeat Adam Schiff. And Katie Porter is running out of Orange County. She's in,
one other big Democrat named
Barbara Lee. So Barbara Lee, Katie Porter, and Adam Schiff.
How do you pick from that group? They're all bad.
Because Nancy Pelosi, gave her blessing to Adam Schiff. So I believe he's the key person in this race for me to defeat.
Though he's not raised the most money at this point.
Yes, he has.
When I looked like a week ago, he had.
Really?
He was slightly behind.
Slightly behind Katie Porter?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because I'm all over Orange County all the time, and those people really don't seem to like her. So that's shocking. She must be getting money out of state then.
I would guess.
Yes, because her district sure don't like her. So, don't get confused, ladies and gentlemen. We talk district because Schiff and Porter and Lee are representatives in the House of Representatives. They're congressmen and women. But we're all running now for United States Senate. And I hope you'll all go to Denise, Denice, Gary, Gary, Pandol, Pandol, DeniseGaryPandol.com. Check out some of my position papers. What we need are contributions, ladies and gentlemen. One of the things you have to do to win a race is you have to have that name recognition that your opponents have. Well, Adam Schiff, because he's a felon and he leaked top secret classified information to the nation and the world. I mean, if I had done that when I had top secret clearances, Eric, I'd be in prison today, right?
Well, but we have a 2-tiered justice system.
Right.
Well, we might get into that later.
Later. But let's just make it clear that man does not belong in the House of Representatives, nor does he belong in the U.S. Senate.
I wouldn't trust him to be dog catcher.
No, I wouldn't either. Or Katie Porter or Barbara Lee, frankly. They're very, they're individuals that are not going to do one thing for the people of our state, our beautiful state, to take care of our citizens. One of the things that I'm running on is making California affordable again. What do we have to do? What do I need to start doing day one, Eric, to make California affordable again? I have to deregulate the economy. I've got to work on overturning NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act that was passed in 1970, and CEQA. And those in the housing industry know about CEQA. We're in a housing crisis. We've got to get rid of those regulations that make it extremely costly for anybody to build anything in this state, particularly housing. People should be able to afford the American dream and buy a house. But
16% of Americans can afford to buy a house. I just saw that stat yesterday.
So here I am. This is a nonpartisan message. You need to tell your friends that are Democrats and Independents to vote for Denise Gary Pandol for United States Senate. In fact, I know I'm supposed to talk it to the mic. Sorry about that. I'm going to hold up my card. I don't see my name up there, but here's my card. I don't think people
believe
will
me,
see it.
it'll be there. Okay, so I have a couple questions kind of before we jump into a lot of policy.
Okay, yeah, because we need to change policies.
Why are you running?
Well, I'm running because, as I stated at the very beginning, I was looking at what Biden administration and the Democrats were doing here in the state of California and in the nation. And of course, right away, being a political scientist, I have, an advanced degree in political science, international relations. I'm the only candidate that does. Again, that's an important credential to have if you're in the U.S. Senate, because you're involved in confirming treaties and ambassadors. And you need to understand world affairs. You need to understand the games nations play. You need to understand who the players are and what they've been doing, even historically. And I'm a student of history. So I looked at that and I thought the Democrats are compromising the national security of the United States. They're making it, well, I'll give you specific examples. Their oil, for example. We get most of our oil from Saudi Arabia and Iraq. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. Who's been interfering with oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, that would be our great friend, yes.
Iran, who calls us the Great Satan. And so why would we put California in jeopardy of supplies that are needed for national security by allowing Iran at any point in time to close the Strait of Hormuz? Saudi Arabia has already shut off the spigot. And we can't afford to go back to those gas lines we had in 1979, Eric. We can't afford financially, the working people of this state cannot afford to keep paying the increasing cost of gasoline at the pump or for their homes in the winter, or, oh, by the way, the electric bill. There's only one thing that is reliable, that can ramp up and ramp down an electric grid. And what is it? It's fossil fuels. It's oil, gas, and coal. That's the only reliable source of energy to ramp up and ramp down
a little bit of hydro if there's enough water behind the dam.
A little bit of hydro.
And a little bit of nuclear, except we don't have plants.
You can't depend, yes, nuclear is great, but they've been destroyed except for one. And by the way, I support rebuilding nuclear facilities because they've become so safe. The innovations and technology associated with nuclear energy is so safe today, again, because of American ingenuity, because of all the new innovations, making things strong and safe. But bottom line, we need to have, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, the United States military, 80% of it runs on gas and oil and coal.
Only 80? I would bet it was higher.
You would think so. But yes, that's the latest I read, that over 80% runs on fossil fuels. How can we even think about defending ourselves as a country and being in the next war? And there's always wars. There'll be another war. How are we going to win that war? I mean, the last war we really won was World War II. And how did we, together with our allies, win it? The United States of America. Now, get a hold of this, ladies and gentlemen. The United States of America provided 80% of the oil to our allies. World War II, the British made it clear to the whole wide world. In Parliament, they stood up and said, Lord Curzon was his name. He stood up in Parliament and he said, the Allies rose to victory on a wave of oil, and the American people provided over 80% of that oil. Let me tell you something, one more thing, this is important. when you are the superpower, and we need to remain dominant unless we want to be controlled by some other adversary in the global community like China. If you want to remain dominant in the world today, if you want King Dollar to remain the reserve currency in the world today, if you want to be number one, you need to have oil and gas and coal, nuclear energy. You need to have it all because that's leverage. When you're negotiating with a foreign country and you're saying to our allies in Europe, don't go buy that oil and gas from Russia. They're just a gas station. We'll take care of you. We'll provide it. Russia never would have invaded Ukraine.
Right.
Because they wouldn't have had the money.
Well, we drove up the price because we cut off our own nose to spite our face.
And oh, by the way, Eric, you know that the United States of America has cut its carbon footprint in half. Tell that to an environmentalist. It doesn't matter. We have the cleanest fossil fuel production in the world. We should be selling it to our friends, to our allies, and to non-aligned countries like India. Because India shouldn't be buying it from any other country but the American people.
Well, they're the largest democracy in the world by far.
Well,
they're potentially a great ally.
Yes, but guess who they're teaming up with right now?
Yes, I know.
They're teaming up with Russia and China. This is dangerous stuff, ladies and gentlemen. And one of the reasons why, too, is because Biden pulled out of Afghanistan during the night. Like a poor dog with his tail between his legs.
He behaved like a coward.
He did. And you don't send that message to Islamic terrorists and Islamic terrorist cells in every state in the Union. You don't send that message to the Islamic world. That's one of the reasons why Osama bin Laden was emboldened enough to attack the United States of America. Because under the Clinton, another Democrat, he pulled Americans out under cover of darkness from Somalia. Remember Black Hawk Down? And our guys their bodies were desecrated and they were tied and dragged through the streets, undressed. Horrible, horrible, horrible thing. That was because Clinton and his administration didn't give our guys the backup that they needed to defeat some warlords in Somalia.
Well, we basically moved from a place of weakness and appeasement. Biden has exemplified
That's where we are. Obama and Biden exemplified that. They destroyed the Department of Homeland Security. And look what we have today. We've got an invasion at our border. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. You tell your Democrat friends and independents, the Republicans, that party was formed in 1854. Why was that party formed?
Largely abolition.
Exactly.
Not exclusively, but largely. That was the largest driving force.
The bottom line was they wanted an anti-slavery party. That's why the Republican Party was formed, because they were triggered. Americans were triggered in 1854 because of the Kansas-Nebraska Act that had been passed out of Congress, out of the U.S. Congress, the House and the Senate. And that Kansas-Nebraska Act said that for every free state that entered the Union, a slave state had to enter the Union, and they said enough. And 10,000 Americans got together, and they said, we're going to establish a new party. It's going to be an anti-slavery party. You tell your friends that are independents, non-declared, or Democrats, the Republican Party, is an anti-slavery. And who brought slavery back to America? The Democrats. When you have open borders and you have these drug cartels that are smuggling people and children under those tunnels and above ground. I mean, they've built tunnels into California. They're smuggling above ground. We've got all kinds of weaponry, terrorists, human smugglers, bringing people and weapons into the country. We've got an open border, and the Department of Homeland Security, whose mission under the Bush administration was to prevent any criminals or criminal networks or anybody with any ties to terrorism from entering into the country, to prevent the random and indiscriminate killing of innocent civilians for a political or religious objective. That's been destroyed. I was engaged to Philip Haney. He was a founding member of the Department of Homeland Security. Under the Biden administration, he was found dead on the side of the road in Plymouth, California. Philip Haney, who wrote the book See Something, Say Nothing, was ready to expose more of those government officials during the Obama-Biden administration. He had said so in the Washington Examiner. And when Ted Cruz, in the United States Senate had that oversight hearing, Philip testified to what was going on in DHS under Obama and Biden. Biden has only made things more dangerous for us, Eric.
Yep. What do you think the role of government is and the role of the Senate?
Well, I'll tell you.
Start with role of government and go to Senate.
Okay, well, starting with the president, the chief executive of the United States of America, his job is to protect the United States, and he's responsible constitutionally for keeping the American people safe, which this president has not done.
Right.
He's supposed to protect us against foreign invasion. He has not done so. He's supposed to uphold federal law. Well, Title 8, Section 1182 says nobody is supposed to enter this country. This is federal law that our president is violating. He should be impeached on that alone. I'm sorry, I keep hitting
Quite
this
right.
other microphone. Title 8, Section 1182 says 4 very important things, people. It says nobody should enter the country unless you have permission. Nobody should enter the country if they have any criminal background. Nobody should enter the country if they're going to be a ward of the state. Oh, my. Everybody that's coming over the border is a ward of the state. We're giving them money. We're giving them transportation. We're giving them food. We're giving medical attention, dental attention, and transportation.
And a phone.
And a phone. They're a ward of the state, but Title 8, Section 1182 says that's unlawful. It also says that you're not supposed to come into the country if you're sick or you have a disease. We used to at Ellis Island, at ports of entry in our country, once upon a time in our history, we had law enforcement and we had a physician. Especially at Ellis Island, you didn't get into this country. You didn't get into America if you weren't checked out by law enforcement and by a medical professional.
Yeah, that's out the window now.
Because constitutionally, the government, starting with the chief executive, the president and the vice president, and those executive branch agencies like the CIA, like the FBI, like the Department of Homeland Security, those agencies are directed by the President of the United States of America, and they're all failing the American people. And we need to clean house. And I want the people of California and America that hear this broadcast to know that Denise Gary Pandol for United States Senate, running to take Dianne Feinstein's seat and defeat Adam Schiff, will be working on that very thing from day one.
So then what is the role of the Senate? And
So
I don't need a technical, just kind of a general overview.
Well, okay, so it's important that I have had top secret clearances and have an advanced degree in international relations. And my core field was actually Middle Eastern affairs, because one of the things that a senator does oversight and deals with intelligence issues and foreign affairs. We have to confirm treaties between our government and foreign governments. We're a check on the President of the United States. We're involved in domestic affairs, but being the upper chamber, being the upper house, it's also important for us to be on top of what's going on in the world community, to be at that important check on the president. It's the House's job too. It's part of Congress's job, the House and the Senate.
Right, but
it's the Senate that confirms judges and confirms treaties or not. Provides 2/3 confirmation on people that a president may appoint. I look at some of the military personnel that the president has appointed, and I'm thinking, why is he appointing them? They shouldn't be in the United States military. They've got a cultural agenda that is not about the defense and security of the United States of America. and the rules of engagement that have handicapped our men and women out there fighting in the field, we need to get that removed. We need to win the next war. God forbid we're in one. I mean, I want peace and stability. But with China saying that they're going to go after Taiwan in a few years, by China saying that they want to defeat the United States of America, by China using biomedical weapons to infect the American people with COVID, by China literally spying on the American people, whether it's through a balloon or sending saboteurs across the border. We just arrested 2 U.S. Navy sailors. I mean, it's incredible. I know.
Absolutely.
Stop talking.
We're going to go ahead and go to break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, share. If you like this candidate,
please make a contribution. I need to defeat Adam Schiff and build my name recognition.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. Today I am joined by U.S. Senate candidate Denice Pandol.
Thank you, Eric.
Welcome. Who would be your allies in the Senate? Because you're one of 100, one of 535 legislators, but one of 100 in the Senate. Who would be your allies?
Well, there's 9 that I can think of right off the bat. I don't know that don't put me on the spot to name names. I don't know that I can name all 9 this morning. I haven't even had a cup of coffee yet, but anyway, Ted Cruz, Marsha Blackburn, Tom Cotton. There's several.
Well, the reason I asked that is because since you can't do anything on your own, you have to. You can write legislation, but you have to be part of a group.
Right, I can propose it. But for example, Tom Cotton. The senators, U.S. senators, know that right now today, as I was saying, China, not only is sending people across the border to spy on the United States of America, we know that, but they have the largest army, the largest navy in the world now.
By far.
And the hypersonic ballistic missiles they've built and positioned all over the country. California, and China, California.
We're relatively close.
Right. So think about not really having a proper missile defense system. So, and then of course they're buying up our land, their military installations, and our farmers who have had their water shut off by bureaucracies, thanks to NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act. You have the EPA and you have water boards here in California and in other states that have literally turned off the water in some instances to the majority of farmers. So they're plowing under their crops and they're getting rid of their livestock. That's the food we eat, Eric.
Right.
And we have food shortages. We have food shortages. We have to get rid of what is not the fourth branch of government, and that are these bureaucracies. But Tom Cotton, for example, has proposed legislation that I would have proposed if I had been in the U.S. Senate today. So Tom Cotton proposed one of my positions, which is to make it illegal to sell 1 more inch of U.S. territory to a foreign entity. We need to protect and preserve the American homeland. So there's somebody that's already doing that. I believe with people like Ted Cruz and Tom Cotton and Marsha Blackburn and others whose names are not coming to mind at this moment, and I apologize to those senators. But at any rate, I believe there's a strong group of us that can propose legislation and get it passed. Because if we want to protect and expand the fossil fuel industry so we can bring the price of gasoline in the state of California down to $2 a gallon, if we want to be able to do that, we've got to defund the EPA. We've got to get rid of the California Water Board that, by the way, shut off water to 97%, in some cases, 97% of our farmers. I was talking to a farmer where I live in Kern County. He said, Denise, on my property, I built a well with my money. My money, my property. I built a beautiful well to pull up water for my farm, big farm. He says, I'm paying tax on every drop of water that I pull out of my well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why farmers are selling their property. This is why they're selling it, in some cases, to our adversaries. This shouldn't be. We could end it. I can work in the United States Senate with other senators, even Democrats, I believe, that have their farmers knocking on their door and calling them on the phone and saying, I need some water.
Hmm.
And I think we can get legislation passed to get rid of NEPA and get rid of these bureaucracies. Eric, I don't know if you realize it, but every household in America is paying $15,000
Yes.
just for the regulations. And I'm not talking about the additional at least 9% that you're paying on inflation. 20% of inflation is just all about buying groceries, food to eat. We could end inflation in America if we just had somebody stand up and say, you know what? We're not going to tax the oil and gas industry into extinction. That's what Biden's been doing.
Right.
And he's increased the corporate tax, but he's also increased the royalty tax on oil companies. We just need to stand up and say, guess what? That's going away.
And he's cut off the funding wherever he can.
Exactly.
For new exploration.
Exactly.
I want to shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
Because we're going to run out of time otherwise.
Okay.
Don't have to say a lot about Trump, but where do you stand?
I voted for Trump twice because I saw a businessman who, despite things that were said that I wouldn't have said,
he's not always wise, but
on tweets and but there's a man who every speech I read, I didn't just listen, I went back to read them. I printed them out and I read them. And one of the things I noticed when I printed out his speeches to really, as somebody that wants, that was thinking about government service, because I'm thinking, what more noble thing could I do this part of my life is to give back to every Californian and the people of this country. Just work night and day, very hard to, make sure their neighborhoods are safe, to make sure life's affordable, to secure the nation, lower taxes. And, President Trump, I felt, showed such love towards the American people. He lowered taxes for the middle class. I want to make that permanent. Job growth was exponentially great. We had economic growth, and that's called cutting spending.
And no war.
No war. That's called deregulating the economy. That's called getting rid of these regulations that are costing our households in California and across the nation $15,000 a year. I mean, to me, that's love in action. You can say a lot of things, but when you care about people, you work hard to make sure they have a job, to make sure that there's growth, to make sure they're protected, to make sure that we make crime illegal again in this state, and that we make crime illegal again across the nation. And I don't know if your listeners realize this, but the federal government, our federal laws trump any state or local law. And I support, and I think it was...
If they're constitutional, yes.
Well, a lot of senators that are Republicans I think, would support sending in troops if we see the kind of thing that we saw.
So you're talking on the border?
I'm talking on the border, and I'm also talking in some of these towns and cities where people are running amok and breaking our laws, and people are going unprotected. I mean, it's not safe. As a woman, I don't even go to the grocery store at night. I used to. I mean, I'm on the campaign trail all the time. And, you just kind of, as a candidate, you just kind of have to grab that milk or, get a few things that you need when you can. And usually that's late at night when I finished at a speaking engagement and it's time to go back to a hotel or, someone's home I'm staying at or home, in my hometown. And I won't go. I just don't because there are people hanging around in the parking lot. There are people hanging around outside, the grocery store door or the drugstore. We have to make sure that people are safe again. And we've got to make sure that these police departments and sheriff's departments are properly funded. And we've got to get rid of these DAs.
Okay, so if you could pick top 3 issues, I've listened to quite a bit of what you said. I'm guessing I know what they are, but just what would they be without details? Just
I would
3
say,
areas of focus.
okay. Well, I would say number one, make life affordable again for California and the people of this country. Deregulate the economy, cut taxes, cut the spending, help balance the budget. I'd say that's number one. Number two, or number one, 1A, 1B, 1C, if I could do that. Support the fossil fuel, protect and expand the fossil fuel, and deregulate the water industry. Build and innovate for water infrastructure. It's illegal in our state for any of us to have rainwater capture systems. Why can't we have rainwater capture systems? Why can't we have more dams? Federal bureaucracies, FERC, the Federal Environmental Regulatory Commission, is tearing down dams right now in Siskiyou County. They've destroyed the entire fishing industry.
Well, this is a multi-layered problem because
it's a multi-layered problem.
California is destroying it too.
Well, it's across the country. Wherever you have Democrats in control, we have to get rid of these bureaucracies and defund them and defund the bureaucrats. So, deregulating the economy, making life affordable again, getting rid of these bureaucracies, making the homeland safe, closing that border, school choice. I absolutely believe that this indoctrination that is creating depression and anxiety in children and leading to greater suicide in our teenage population because these awful teachers in the public schools are teaching children that they should question their biological gender. Why do you need to plant that seed in a 5-year-old's mind?
Well, I don't know that all teachers are awful, but there are definitely some awful ones.
The taxpayer dollars should follow those children, grades K through 12. So if their parents would like to not put them in a school,
right, then there would be
teaching
choice.
this choice. Isn't that what a free market economy is about? Doesn't competition bring greatness to the table? I mean, why shouldn't a public school teacher have to compete with other teachers that might be doing a better job and get those students out of failing public school classrooms?
Well, because they want to control everything and because they've got a monopoly, essentially, two different teachers' unions.
So let's end it. Let's get legislative passed on the federal level.
Would you want the president to get rid of the Department of Education?
I sure would. That was a Ronald Reagan position. Ronald Reagan was calling for the end of the Department of Education. He was calling, there are agencies and departments we don't need. One of them is the Department of Education, and an agency is the Environmental Protection Agency. We need to move on.
Well, I believe states could handle those problems.
I think so. States' rights.
Well, I'm a
10th Amendment.
I'm a federalist in a lot of ways.
Okay, well.
So I tend to want state and as local a control as possible as the solution, rather than a federal solution.
But
I know that doesn't always work.
It doesn't work, and it's not working now. We have to deregulate the economy. We absolutely have to. We have to provide freedom to our farmers and our ranchers to get the water they need. We need to be able to free up developers and builders to be able to build a simple house without charging $1 million for it in Los Angeles. I mean, we've got to get rid of CEQA. We've got to get rid of NEPA. And those are federal issues. That's federal legislation that we need to get rid of. That's not going to be handled on the state or local level.
Well, agreed.
Yeah.
Look, this is
a big deal,
my
and we
goal
need.
would always be there's the most
Well, sure, of course.
responsive government at locals, so you
Sure,
got to
sure,
change
sure.
local.
Well, you hope so. I mean, in Kern County, they tried to get rid of the Dominion. They tried to get. It's not just the diminished machines. There are other machines that were used, and right there on the local level, our board of supervisors in Kern County,
Well,
wouldn't get rid of it, and
but-
everybody was there and demanding that they do so, and it didn't happen. So
some of them need to be recalled. That's what they did in Shasta, so that then the vote changed and they got that done.
I understand, and I, as a candidate right now, I can't,
Yeah.
focus on a recall.
Right.
But I'm working night and day now. But we can absolutely, as your United States Senator, I can work on voter integrity, and I can work towards getting legislation passed for a holiday on voting day and going back to paper ballots with a photo identification that has to be present.
Wait, you're one of those racists because voter ID is racist, right? I know. I'm totally kidding, folks. It's totally ridiculous.
Paper ballots with a photo identification. Let's give people a holiday. Nobody can say they couldn't get to the voting booth. But right now, I'm telling your audience, we need everybody on board. Please go to DeniceGaryPandol.com, DENICE, Gary, GARY, Pandol, PANDOL.com. Please help me win. To win, you have to build name recognition. I need more volunteers in every county. There are 58 counties in this state. I need people that are going to do ballot harvesting. I need people that are going to volunteer to watch at the polls. We need people that'll make calls, put up signs. We need money to buy all those signs. It's going to be over $200,000 just to buy enough signs for the Republicans in the state of California, not counting those independents that want to vote for me or Democrats.
One of the jobs of the Senate is to approve judicial nominees.
Right.
Kind of what's your perspective? What type of nominee are you looking for, or not looking?
Well, I certainly want a strict constitutionalist, right?
So an originalist.
Yes.
But that's important. My people need to know that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. If you go back and you read the founding documents, I think our founding fathers would be turning over in their grave today because we've got justices on the Supreme Court that don't support free speech. They don't support free speech. I can't believe what happened during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And, we had judges that were perfectly okay with shutting down churches and businesses across this country. That should have been a choice. And the American people and the people in California have a choice too. If you felt nervous about going to a church or going to a restaurant because of COVID, you didn't need to go. Mm-hmm. But those of us like me that didn't feel nervous about COVID, and I got COVID, but I got over it, and I realized that some people didn't, some people did. It should be a choice.
So the medical mandates would be a choice for you too?
I don't believe that the federal government should tell the American people what they have to do. We're supposed to be living in the most free country on the planet. I mean, we're not supposed to be controlled every time we turn around. I mean, you can't even, I think about fishing, and you have to get all kinds of permits just to go fishing. It's just, what happened? We need to deregulate the economy. Well, we need to push back on these regulations and making it impossible for. I was talking to a cabinet builder. I mean, she does custom cabinets, and she says the mound of paperwork. She's a small business owner. I mean, the Democrats are putting our small businesses out of.
Well, they don't want small businesses because it's hard to control small business owners.
And yet they're the engine of our economy.
Because they're independent. I agree.
They're the engine of our economy. And we've got to get rid of that mountain of paperwork. We've got to not tax those small businesses like we're taxing those small businesses and regulating them. It's horrible.
Okay. We're going to take our last break.
Okay.
This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. So we're down to about 10 minutes. I always love to end with the things you're hopeful, solutions, as opposed to there's a lot to complain about, legitimate things to
I've been
complain
giving
about.
solutions.
You have, I know,
Oh,
but I want to
mm.
try to frame it in that way if you can. Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. I am joined by candidates.
United States senatorial candidate.
That was a mouthful.
Denise Gary Pandol.
Thank you, Denise.
You're so welcome, Eric. Not a problem.
Well, as you know, I like to end with kind of hope and solutions, and we've talked about some of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most of the time when you talk to somebody, we focus on the negative. I think there's a lot of positives still in this country, and we have an opportunity because of COVID revealed all these problems. Trump helped reveal all these problems. Now we simply have to become the leaders that we should be to seize it. Mm-hmm. So as that one of those potential new leaders, what are you going to do?
Well, as I pointed out during the course of this program, I want to deregulate the economy. I believe we can get legislation passed in the U.S. Senate, and I can work with Speaker McCarthy to get that passed in the House and begin to make life affordable again. And part of that is water infrastructure so that all of our farmers and ranchers have all the water we need. And guess what? We have all the water we need in California. Ladies and gentlemen, if you just save 5% of the Sierra Nevada snowcap, 5% of the Sierra Nevada snowcap that melts and goes into the ocean, if you just provided storage for that water, California would never have a water shortage again. It's innovation, not regulation.
Well, we have two plans.
That's my solution.
That are approved, but we can't get it done.
Why is that? Because of the EPA. And one of my solutions is getting rid of NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, and we can start defunding and get rid of these organizations that are not the fourth branch of government, that should not be controlling our lives, like the EPA. So we have plenty of water. The other solution is protecting and expanding the fossil fuel industry for economic reasons, for humanitarian reasons. Oil provides synthetic fertilizer, which keeps plants strong and helps them grow. Around the globe, we have farmers trying to get hold of it. It's also a clean energy issue. We have carbon capture now, but it's probably most importantly a national security issue. You have to have it to protect your country. We have to have school choice because of the whole genderism being taught in classrooms that are confusing people. We need to get back to STEM classes. The solution that Denise Gary Pandol is going to promote are STEM classes, not CRT, not critical race theory, not causing children to think about the color of their skin. Children don't need to think about the color of their skin. They need to think about science, technology, engineering, math, reading, writing, music, getting involved in sports. We don't need to get them focused on their gender or their skin color. It's about...
Wait, that's not part of education?
No. Also, my solution, of course, is closing the border. That's a humanitarian issue. That can end the millions of dollars that we have criminal networks making on selling a 10-year-old over and over and over again, every day of every week of every month, in human trafficking. Shutting the border is a humanitarian issue. It's a national security issue. And all we have to do is enforce the law. So my solution is, let's enforce the law. Let's make crime illegal again in California and in this country. And we can do that because we can actually defund organizations, including DHS, until they get their act together and they start enforcing federal law.
The Trump administration decided on the border that if somebody came through with a kid, you had to prove that was your kid.
Exactly. And that's fundamental. It's right. It's basic.
And then the Biden administration came in and immediately went, no, you don't have to prove that's your kid. So they're enabling traffic. So child sniffing Joe,
yes,
is enabling trafficking of kids.
He's enabling death. So one of my solutions as well is not just defunding organizations until they get their act together, but We need to make human trafficking not just a serious felony. We need to make it punishable by death. Because a human trafficker, oh yes, we do, because children don't last. A child dies. You can't be raped over and over and over again and survive that because they're drugged. Sometimes they're beaten. Sometimes they're starved. They're forced to comply into a situation where they're raped continuously. So they die. And so there needs to be a death penalty associated with the slave trade in America today. And that's brought on by Democrats. So if you're a Democrat or an independent listening to me now, I hope you have enough humanity in your soul that you can vote for a woman, Denise Gary Pandol, for U.S. Senate that wants to end human trafficking. And also, the growth of fentanyl, the growth of drugs coming into our country that's killing the American youth of today. It would also end the horrific crime. Drug cartels and Islamic terrorists kill people. And we need to make our streets and our neighborhoods safe again. I want to do that. And I'll work very hard with other senators and people in the House of Representatives. That's another solution that needs to happen.
Fund the police and put teeth.
Teeth.
We don't even necessarily need new laws. We simply, in many cases, need to enforce the ones that are there.
We just need to enforce the ones that are there. And we need to get rid of this thing in California that says, you can send 50 people into Nordstrom's and they can each one take over $950 worth of merchandise out and there'll be no prosecutions. I mean,
yeah, it's a ticket.
I would hold the funding from that city till they get their act together and they start enforcing the law. And if the law is allowing people to just run free after they've stolen, I'd say you better get your law changed, people. Change your law and enforce the law. I don't care if a window was broken. Enforce the law. That's what Mayor Giuliani did in New York. And that was when crime really took a steep decline in the city of New York because it was the broken window concept. You don't let things slide because when you let one thing slide, then the next thing goes and the next, it opens up the door to a lot of sliding on a lot of crime. And then crime doesn't, there's no retribution, there's no punishment, there's nothing. And so people commit more crime because, I can get away with it. What could I get away with today?
So you're saying the petty crime would lead its way up to,
to
murder and all kinds of
It does, just like marijuana has been a gateway. I don't care that people say it's not a gateway drug. By the way, marijuana has become far more dangerous today than it used to be once back in the day. Marijuana has become even more dangerous to people's health. There are drugs that are a gateway drug to more serious drugs. We need to, bottom line, I mean, you might not like what I just said on marijuana. Okay, but look at the big picture. You can get Adam Schiff in there that is going to make your life more dangerous and cost you more money, or you can vote for Denise Gary Pandol, even though you don't like her position on marijuana and you want marijuana legal in the state of California.
No, that's not me, but
I know, but that could be one of your listeners. And my point that I'm making is people need to think about what they're doing. They're going to make it harder and harder for people to live in this state and in this country if they don't elect Denise Gary Pandol, who actually wants to help them in every area of life, prosper and be safe and have economic growth.
We're down to about a minute.
Okay.
Final thoughts.
Family. I support families. I think that, Black Lives Matter and some of the Antifa and some of these groups want to destroy the family unit. They say that. I mean, I'm not just posturing.
It's on their website.
It's not right. It's written down in black and white. And maybe they've scrubbed their website from when the last time I looked at it. But that's what they've said out loud on radio shows, on podcasts. And that's what they wrote down. So I want to support our values, our America's values, our founding values, our First Amendment rights, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the press, the right to peacefully assemble. There are children in our schools that can't even have a Christian group on campus and pray if they want to in their Christian group. We've got to get back to the Bill of Rights and protecting all Americans, not just woke leftists and their agenda.
That is a wrap. This is Eric Rollins,
Thank
the
you, Eric.
Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town, for my social media audience. As soon as the music's done, can you give your contact information one more time?
Denice, Denice, Gary, Gary, Pandol, Pandol.com. Please go to my website, check it out. Please make a contribution. We've got to grow name recognition to win on the ballot on March 5th. Ballots will drop in February sometime because we have ballot harvesting thanks to the Democrats. Please help people vote and get their ballot to the polling booth.
Well, Denice, I thank you for this time.
Thank you, Eric.